You know the name. Dracula, the Impaler, the prince who grew a forest of corpses and ate his dinner beneath it. That is the monster the world agreed to remember. But the very first body ever traded in this story was yours. You were 11 years old. Your own father walked you up to the enemy and left you there to save his crown. Everything they would later call evil in you began as something done to you. So look at what they built, and watch who it gets aimed at in the end, when there is no one left to aim it at but your own. The most powerful man alive is marching toward your capital, and he stops. Mehmed the Conqueror, the man who cracked Constantinople open and ended a 1,000-year empire. Stone walls never slowed him. Then he reaches the plain outside your city. Thousands of his own soldiers are standing there, in neat rows, raised on stakes. They have been dead long enough to fall silent. The Conqueror stares at it. Then he turns his whole army around and goes home. You did this, and the question that should chill you is not how. It is this: what has to be done to a human being to turn him into the one thing that frightens a man like that? None of it started with you. It started with a father and a price. Here is the man they hand you, a prince who impaled for sport, who dipped his bread in the blood of the dying, who killed 20,000, 80,000, and the number swells with every retelling. A thing born wrong, whittling stakes in the dark. It is a tidy story. A monster is easy. A monster you can shut the book on and sleep. But the boy under that story was not born holding a stake. He was born a deposit, handed over, signed for, kept. And the men who carved the monster into him wore crowns and called themselves his keepers. Pull the legend off, and the first thing you find underneath is not cruelty at all. It is a child being sold by his own blood. You are 11. Your father rules a small country wedged between two empires that both want it, and he has run out of moves, so he brings you to meet the Sultan. You and your younger brother Radu, you believe it is a visit, it is a payment. The Sultan keeps you both. Your father rides home 2 sons lighter and buys himself a few more years on the throne. Nobody asks whether you agree. That question does not exist here. You are not a son in this room. You are a guarantee, collateral against your father's loyalty. The terms need no words. If he betrays the Sultan, the debt comes out of your skin, so you spend your boyhood learning one lesson over and over, not fear, worth, the exact small amount of it you are allowed to have. They never chain you. That is the cleverest part of it. You are fed and taught and trained in their tongue, their faith, their way of war. You sit close enough to watch them plan the fall of Constantinople years before it falls, and you watch your brother do the thing you cannot. Radu smiles. Radu befriends the Sultan's own son, Mehmed, and lets himself be taken in. He survives by becoming theirs. You survive by hating every hour of it. Step wrong, and they remind you what you are. There are long stretches you pass shut behind fortress walls, not knowing if your father's politics have already killed you. A guest is invited to stay. You are quoted the cost of leaving. The cage does not teach you to break. It teaches you precisely how a cage is built, and that one day you will build your own. Then word comes from home, and home is gone. Your father is dead, not on a battlefield, but run down in a swamp and killed, sold out by the very nobles who ate at his table. Your older brother, the heir, gets the worse end. They take him first. They burn out his eyes. Then they lower him into the earth with his heart still beating and shovel it shut. Buried alive, barely a man, by lords who had knelt to him a season before. These are not Turks, not foreigners. These are your own, the boyars, the great noble houses of your own country, who decided your family was finished and made sure of it. You are a hostage in another empire when it happens. You can do nothing but carry the picture in your head. And that picture does not leave a boy grieving. It leaves him certain. Somewhere in those years, the grief cools, hardens, and turns into a list with names on it. Years later, you claw your way back onto your father's throne, and then you open the ground. You go to your brother's grave and have it dug up. The chronicles say that when they lifted the lid, he was not lying as the dead are laid. He was turned over, face down. His hands were raised, the wood scratched and torn from the inside. He had woken in the dark under the soil and fought it, and lost, and you are staring at the shape his last minutes left in the wood. This is what your own countrymen did, not killed him, sealed him in alive and walked away. You are standing over a coffin that is also a confession. and whatever was left of mercy in you closes like a fist. The men who did this are still in your court. They still smile at you. They are about to learn that you remember. So you throw a feast. It is Easter. You open your hall to the noble families, the boyars, the old houses, the ones who outlived 4 princes in a single lifetime and fully expect to outlive you. They arrive in silk and brocade, gold at the throat, fine boots, soft hands. They eat your food and drink your wine and feel safe because feeling safe is what their blood has always bought them. That sounds like peace. It is not. It is a count. You move among them watching, matching every face to the grave you just opened. They think they are guests at a celebration. They are guests at the end of their world, and only one person in the room knows it yet. You let them finish the meal. You always let them finish the meal. Then the day turns. The older men, the ones whose hands were on your father and your brother, those you impale, outside the walls, still in their feast clothes. The rest you do not kill. You do something colder. You march them out of the capital, the whole noble class, men and women 50 miles north into the mountains, and you do not let them rest. At the top of a cliff above a gorge there is a ruin, and you make them rebuild it into a fortress for you. They haul brick. They pass stone up the ridge by hand. They fire lime in the kilns and climb again and again under your soldiers' eyes. No one gives them new clothes. So the silk they wore to your feast rots on their backs day after day until the brocade hangs in strips and they are carrying stone half naked, and they keep carrying it until they drop and are not replaced. You never needed their loyalty. You wanted them gone, and you wanted it slow. The class that buried your brother alive, you bury under a mountain, one carried stone at a time. By now the stories are racing ahead of you, and you help them run. You raid the Saxon towns that crossed you, the merchant city of Brasov among them, and you leave the road lined with stakes for the traders to walk past. Word travels faster than any army. Printers in the German towns put out little pamphlets with woodcuts. The prince at his table, the forest of bodies around him, the bread and the blood, 20,000, they write, 100,000. The numbers climb because terror sells, and because the men selling it are the men you ruined. Here is the part the legend leaves out. The historians who actually count come nowhere near those figures. The real toll across your whole reign is likely a small fraction of the printed number, somewhere near 7 or 10 in every 100 they claim. You never needed the true number to be that high. You needed the story to be that high. A reputation does the killing for you, for free, while you sleep. You were the first to understand that a monster is a weapon you can fire from very far away. Then the bill comes due. You stop paying the Sultan's tribute. When his envoys will not bare their heads to you, you nail their turbans to their skulls and send him that answer. So Mehmed the Conqueror, the boy your brother befriended, now the man who took Constantinople, gathers the largest army he has raised since those walls fell, and he points it at you, and he does not come alone. Riding beside him, dressed as a prince, is your brother, Radu, the one who smiled and survived. Mehmed brings him as your replacement, a familiar face to set on your throne the moment you are gone. So this is the shape of it. The empire that bought you as a child is coming to erase you, and it is using the brother who was bought alongside you to do it. Whatever happens next, you are fighting your own blood for a country that has already betrayed you twice. You cannot meet that army in the open. It is too large, so you do the thing no one expects because it is the thing only a man raised inside the enemy would ever think of. You speak their language, you know their faith, their watchwords, the way they move at night. So you put on their uniform. On a night in June, you ride into Mehmed's own camp dressed as one of his soldiers, your men behind you, walking through the firelight like you belong there, because for years they made certain you did. You are hunting one tent. The Sultan's. You mean to end the entire war with a single body. You tear through the camp in the dark, killing as you go, and thousands fall before they understand the enemy is already among them. But the camp is vast, and in the confusion you reach the wrong tent. His guard closes around him. The one death you came for is the one you do not get. The captivity that broke you had also taught you exactly how to walk into the heart of an empire unseen. You used it, and it was not quite enough. You fall back toward your capital, and you leave him a message on the road. When his army marches the last stretch to your city, the ground opens up in front of them, a field of stakes reaching as far as the eye can carry. On them, set in rows, are his own people, prisoners and soldiers, the Turks you took on his way in. The chroniclers put the count at 23,844. They have been there long enough to rot and fall silent, and the smell reaches the army before the sight does. This is the man who took Constantinople, who feared no wall ever raised. He rides into that field, and he stops. His own chronicler writes down what he says, that a man who could do this, who could rule and terrify like this, could not be stripped of his country, that such a man was worth more than the war. Then the most powerful man on earth digs a trench around his own camp like a frightened thing, and at dawn he turns his army around and goes home. You did not win with a sword. You won by becoming something a conqueror could not stand to look at. The boy they kept as a deposit had grown into the one shape the empire could not afford to face. It does not save you. Your throne never holds for long because the country you terrified never loved you, and there is always another claimant the boyars prefer. The end comes in winter, in a fight near a lake. Maybe 2,000 of your men against twice that, a force of Turks and the rival who wants your seat. The accounts of how you died do not agree, and the disagreement is the cruelest part. One says, a hired killer slips into your camp in disguise and cuts you down. The other says you put on a Turk's clothes one last time, the old trick, to move through the fighting, and your own soldiers, seeing a Turk among them, did not know their prince and killed you themselves. The disguise that once let you walk into an empire is the disguise that gets you killed by your own men. They take your head, they pack it in honey and send it to Constantinople, to the Sultan, who sets it on a stake above the city. The same death you spent your whole life dealing, handed back to you, in the capital of the empire that first bought you as a boy. The weapon they forged finally came around and pointed at the man who held it. Stand in that field one more time, with the conqueror turning his army around, and ask it again. Not how a man does this. What has to happen to make him? Your father sells you to buy a few more years of power. An empire raises you in a cage and teaches you its language so well that you can wear its skin. Your own countrymen butcher your family and seal your brother alive in the ground. Hand a child all of that, and you do not get a victim. You get a weapon, and a weapon does not care which way it is turned. You turn it on the nobles who buried your brother. You turn it on the empire that bought you. And in the end, your own people turn it back on you, and the empire you defied keeps your head on a stake. The Impaler, the world remembers, the monster in the pamphlets, was never quite you. You were the answer, your world built to its own cruelty, and then could not survive. You were betrayed into a weapon. You became one, and the last hand you ever fell to was your own.